With the young lady situation, which was just horrendous, I wonder who was in the room that could actually have stopped that.
What do you mean, who was in the room?
Who was in that room while she was being molested?
Well, the man and her.
While the man did it. Mm-hmm. And if it was you or me, would we not be taking a trial on that, or at least look down upon on that? But yet there's one person that was in that room that didn't do nothing about it.
So are you saying that God should have intervened?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If he's real, he should intervene. So and I'll leave it at that.
Well, no, stay there, Brian, if you would, because are you a Christian or?
No.
Okay. Are you an atheist?
I would say I'm agnostic on it.
Okay. Why should God have done anything? By what standard are you judging God?
That's not the question. That's not the point.
No, I agree. It's a good question for my worldview.
I'm putting myself into your shoes of saying the Old Testament, New Testament, Jesus saying this, Jesus is real, he's in that room watching it happen, and he does nothing.
Well, we cover this in depth in Stealing from God, but let me just give you a couple of things here. If God were to step in every time any one of us would do any kind of evil at all, he might start with me. He might start with you, right? Because if God wanted to stop evil, he could, but if he did, he would take away our free will. And if he takes away our free will, then we're no longer moral creatures. And if we're no longer moral creatures, we can't love. And then this is not a moral world anymore. It's a world of robots. Now, it is a great question, because we think about it and we go, well, we would have stopped it, and we would have. But we're not God. We don't know what kind of outcome is going to result from that long term. There's something known as the ripple effect. I'm sure you've heard about it. It's also called the butterfly effect. That an event occurring today can ripple forward to affect many other events in the future. In fact, every event does this. It ripples forward. And you ask, well, why wouldn't God stop that? Why did he allow it to continue? We don't have direct answers to that question, but we know why we don't have direct answers to that question. We're finite, God is infinite. He can allow an event to occur to ripple forward and ultimately bring some great good that we can't see, maybe 500 years from now. And he can also recompense the person that went through this in heaven. In fact, Hebrews actually talks about this, people achieving a better resurrection for when they go through these things. But the point here is that we can't see everything and God can. In fact, there's an example of this in the book of Genesis, where Joseph from the Old Testament is sold into slavery by his brothers. Could God have stopped that? Yeah, he could have. But he didn't. He allowed it to go forward. Joseph goes and he becomes a leader of prominence in Egypt, and he puts away a whole ton of grain. Then his family flees Israel to flee a famine, and they come to Joseph in Egypt. And Joseph could have said, what you did to me for evil is going to cause me to rebel or to pay you back. He doesn't do that. What does he say? What you meant for evil, God meant for good, the saving of many lives that is occurring right now. Joseph saw the ripple effect of evil done in him in his own lifetime. It actually turned out to be good later. So if God were to stop, he could stop all evil if he wanted to. But if he did, this would no longer be a moral world. Our choices would be trivial.
It's just interesting that we hold ourselves to a higher standard than God.
No, we don't hold ourselves to a higher standard than God. We just recognize our limitations. In fact, there was a famous pastor who was in Notre Dame 150 years ago, and he said this about evil. He said, if God would give me his power for 24 hours, you would see how many changes I would make in this world. But if he gave me his wisdom too, I would leave things as they are.